Hey YouTube, I am just getting on here to do video. Just gonna sit here and work. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and feel free to ask. It's been a while since I did an actual how-to work video, so I just figured I'd go ahead and pop on here. Also, some amazing stuff that I just want to go ahead and share with you guys. To a Chillicothe Festival, met some amazing vendors there. I lost the cards because they're around here somewhere. I know I saw them. But one of them that you need to check out is these hair things that I have in my hair right now are absolutely phenomenal. And they are done Siren's Secret Treasures. And you aren't going to be able to read that and you aren't going to be able to see that. But I'm going to go ahead and try to link. I'm not real great with link stuff. But these are really cool. I've been wearing them a lot. They also work as self-defense. If you have this in your hair, you get attacked. That could definitely hurt somebody, so you could get away. So I thought those were really cool. Also, I just recently got a dress, and a friend of mine here in Cincy also does some amazing creations. It's Cuckoo's Curiosities. Again, you're not going to be able to see it because, of course, it's going to be backwards, but I'm also going to try to link her in the bottom. So let's go ahead and get started. The angles on this might be a little funky because what I was using or rigging for my videos, it's actually broken. It was like a selfie stick that I had screwed to my table, and it worked really well, but it broke. So I'm working on getting something else. So I have now rigged this. So let's hope it doesn't fall. If you hear me saying a curse word and then it like going blank, that's why, because it just fell. All right, first off, I like to prepare my workstation. So when I'm working with resin, I use just some regular old wax paper. This will prevent your pieces from sticking to your table and permanently being a part of your table. It also, with some things that I work with, basically the back of it's not completely sealed, so it runs out. So this will also keep it from getting super, super, super messy. All right, and then once I have my wax paper down, I figure out which molds I want to do. So in this particular case, the molds that I'm planning on working with today is I have Kingdom Heart mold, which I'm super excited about these. I can't wait till these come out. There's not a whole lot of Square Enix pieces out there that you can get, so these should be super fun. I did one, like what I call my test round. So I have some that are going to be in gold and I have some that are going to be in green. So I want to do another setting that's actually going to be in a deeper color. So in order to keep my molds from sticking and to keep them nice, I just use a casting solution and then rub around in there. Just spray it, rub it in, and then let it dry. That'll keep the molds from cracking eventually or like sticking to it or breaking. And then you just let it sit until completely dry. That's why I do it at the beginning. By the time I get to my molds, they're usually completely dry. The second mold I'm going to be using today are these little robot ones. I actually have made a couple of these. They're super, super cute. And I had a request from the captain of our airship, Airship Shanti, Mendiza Nigiri, for a gold one. So I just finished doing a gold one. I don't know how well he's going to pick up, but these are super cute. So I want to get a couple more out. Now you can make molds. You can do scrape molds, you can do push molds, you can purchase molds online, you can do silicone pour molds. There's so many different ways you can do molds. I did kind of a video on molds. It's been forever ago. And I did a brief overview on making molds. So put that there. And then the other one I think I'm going to be working with today is going to be my Jason mold. And here's Jason. A finished Jason. This guy just needs to be put on a chain. So I'm also going to be doing some chaining. And I'm kind of going to be going into depth a little bit on getting some of these robots painted to show you some of the details that are going to be going into them. Alright, my molds are now prepared. Alright, the next thing I'm going to be doing is I just set the front of this guy. So now I'm going to be setting the back with a little bit more, just to make sure that it's steady in place. So I'm going to be setting it down on the wax paper, making sure the chain is completely out of the way because you don't want to get any of this on the chain. And then, there you go. In order to even it out, I'm going to be taking this clip and just putting it underneath this side so it sits flat and even so it doesn't teeter. And then that is just going to have resin added to it. This guy right here, I'm going to be chaining and doing some sculpting on the sides, I think, possibly. This one got a bubble on the back, so I had to drill out a little bit, and so this one just is going to need just a dab more resin in the back. So I'm going to set that right there to dab the resin in. This one just needs chaining. So I'm going to be making a pile real quick. Chaining, painting. So this is chaining. This is connecting, so that's resin. This is chaining. So here's also, we're going to have some little cactars from Final Fantasy. It's not focusing. Anyway, that just needs chained. Alright, this is painting. This one I don't know what I'm doing with yet. Painting. This needs the top. So basically what I do is I put a hole in the top, screw these in, and then I take resin and seal it. That way it's more sturdy hold on the hooks on the top of these. So that one just needs the resin in the top. This one's kind of crooked, so I think I'm going to go ahead and resin paint it, and then probably, it's just slightly off center. I'll go ahead and put that in one of the mystery boxes. Yep, this one needs the resin in the top. Other than that, that one's ready to roll. This guy, I did resin on the top of the wings yesterday, so I'm going to be flipping him and resining the back. Painting. This one needs some resin. And this one is painting. So I did a wing. Earlier, and I didn't paint it just to see what it would look like. I think it's really pretty. I don't know how well it's gonna show up on here, but that one's gonna be super fun. And this one is actually to the top resin stage as well. So that one needs resin. And then I also did some translucent flowers in the same mold. Which I don't know what it is. Oh, right in front of my face. That's usually... Again, this is... And I also need to resin the rose. So that goes right over here. So I'm just using this mold for the little crystal shaped ones so they sit up straight so the top doesn't wind up crooked. Alright. Okay, so let's get started. So I have my water over here and I have paintbrushes over here on the side where you can't see them. Chaining, 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 and chaining. These just all need chained. These are really cute. Super excited to chain them. Alright, so what I usually do is I fill up my... This is actually a ice tray. It's got the pop on the bottom. So I like this because once the paint completely dries, you can actually push in on the bottom and like pop the paint out. These were really inexpensive when I bought them. But it's been kind of nice because I don't always have to worry about completely getting them rinsed out. I can just let them dry and pop them out, which is nice because I have so much stuff that I have to rinse and sit to dry. Just pop that whole little piece. Clean enough. So to start, I usually just get my paint tray and put the basic colors that I usually use. So usually it's a black. Sometimes I mix my own paint. Sometimes I use acrylics. Usually I use a lot of yellow. Red. And white. Then I also use these to give like a metallic-y shine. So I'm getting out my black and my green. Oh, and I'll be using sparkle on the tops of some of these. And then, since I am going to be doing some gold bots, also put some gold. Alright. Alright. Alright, to start off these guys, to give it definition, basically what I'm going to be doing is taking the metallic sheen that I just, metallic sheen paint that I just put in here, and I'm going to be just coating it. I also have a metallic that I made over here in copper and gold. I think I might actually do this one, a little bit of a copper gold. And this is just an overall like little base color. I just put a nice light little thin coat. This is really just to help with the detail. Because when they come out, they're not super metallic. So basically this particular one, oh, I don't have another one. But anyway, when they come out, they have detail on them, but not a lot. And sometimes if the detail doesn't completely come through, I'll just basically take a Dremel with a nice point end and like just clarify some of the detail. This one turned out actually pretty well. These are fast dry paints that I actually use, so it doesn't take long for them to dry, because again, it would take me 3 million years to do all these if I had to like wait a couple hours for all of them to dry. Alright, now that I have my base on, I'm going to go in with my shadowing, which I will be using black for that. And for shadowing, I just want a very small amount of paint on the brush. So I will dip into the black and then kind of tap it out over here to make sure they don't have an over amount. And then a little bit of black in here. And then basically just the crevices. It's alright if you get a little bit too much on there. can always fix it later. And then I usually have a brush that doesn't have any paint on it, that's just a little damp off to the side. I forgot to say that. Because if you're doing definition, sometimes I just like take a little wet brush and just like smoke it out a little bit, I guess is the best way to put it. Alright, and then I'm going to move on to the mouth. I'm going to take some red for that. And these are actually little stars on the chest, so I'm going to dip into some yellow. And then I'm going to go into the eyes. I'm going to take a little bit of white. And then here is optional, but you can take a different color and do like a dot in the middle. I think on the other, like green. Maybe I'll just put a little sparkle in the middle. And I usually do sparkle on the little knobs on the top. And then go back in with some gold. It's a little bit of deeper gold is what I'm basically doing, is going back in and doing a little bit more highlight on the indent areas. And then I will go back into the original gold to give it a nice metallic sheen. Okay, so that is the paint, detail paint phase of making one of these little robots. Oh, it does not want to focus. Looks blurry. But, I mean, you get the gist. These guys are really cute. They're going to be up real soon. So, basically, to make these guys takes, 2, 3, about 4 to 5 days, because I got to mix the resin, and then I put the pigment in the resin, then I pour it, then I let it sit in the molds for at least 24 hours, then I pop them, and then after I pop them, I detail paint them, which took roughly, I don't know, 20 minutes, and then let the detail painting completely dry, and then I'll put a varnish coat on them, that way the paint doesn't scrape off and it stays on there. And then the last thing is going to be putting a back on it, which I have a couple different ways I do them. Sometimes I use the hook and eye that I screw in there, and then I told you I put the resin on top to seal it in, and then sometimes I use one of these. And that will basically, I will take resin and I will set this on the back. So it'll have a wider hook on it in case you like a wider chain or whatever. So that is the robot. Detail painting a robot. And then I do the same with the cactus. Cactus is, of course, different colors, different detailing, but the same sort of process. With the cactus, actually takes a little bit longer because the lines are a lot smaller in him. So I start off actually with the cactus with the ink and gold in, what is this? In green yellow. And then, of course, I do the base frost coat. Now this is almost like a rub and buff, if anybody's familiar with that. I did a rub and buff video. It's a wax-based paint. And basically what this is going to do is going to make it look very, very, very metallic. The reason I use a lot of the lighter metallic shades is because also most of my stuff glows in the dark or is UV reactive. And if I had thought about it, I would have brought the UV light in here and given you an idea of what I'm talking about. But I didn't completely think about it. Actually not 100% where the UV light is right now. Okay, so this also just helps kind of bring out the detailing and gives it a nice, again, this is not one to focus on anything. A nice shimmer is basically what it's going to do. It's going to give it a metallic sheen. And then for the ink and gold, I like to let it sit for just a few. Once I got it to where it wants, because ink and gold is a lot like rub and buff. The more you rub it, the more metallic it gets, the more translucent. So once I get it right to where I want it, I just leave it and let it sit for a minute. And then this guy going with the black. And then I'll just paint all those little detail lines on him. I don't know if you can see. But it takes a little while for him because the detail lines are a very delicate operation. And I have a pinched nerve and carpal tunnel, so sometimes I'm a little shaky. So sometimes I'll just have to stop and take a break if my fingers go numb or something and set them down. So they're a little bit harder to do, but still super worth it, super cute. Again, Square Enix, Final Fantasy, there's not a lot of goods out there that you can get for them. I mean, it just doesn't exist. It's not like Square Enix just has this stuff. It's just really hard to come by, so yep, there we go. All right, moving on. Let's go ahead and get this resin going. Oh, wait, so the other molds that I use are these little ones. I forgot, I need to get some more set up for the resin. Oh, he needs to go over here. Chain. Okay, so resin set. So this is like just a thing I have sitting at my station, just full of bones. These are like teeth. I also have like bags with vertebrae in them. They're sourced from different places. If you go wood walking, a lot of times you can find yourself some really pretty bones underneath Inkel's nests. Like, as long as it's not like, you know, season and you're not going to disrupt the animal, is a really good place to score some nice looking bones. I've had friends that do conservation that have brought, we've gotten bones off them. I have friends that hunt for food, that they want the whole animal used. They want to respect that. So they'll oftentimes give me stuff. I have friends who just, you know, naturally an animal has died or something. They'll, hey, I got a dead animal out my lawn. You want to come get it? So I'll process them. Roadkill is another really good way to get some bones. So yeah, I get my bones from various sources, but no animal is purposely harmed in order to make any of the jewelry that I make. I am a huge animal advocate. But it's just loving them after they're gone. A piece of them will be with somebody, you know. I also do and open to doing customs for people if you've lost a loved pet or a loved one. Ashes, I can do ashes. Memoriam jewelry, that kind of stuff. Alright, the next thing I need to prep for this run is the cicada wing. There she be. So these guys are super, super delicate. So I'm actually going to be using paint pen on this one. Before I was using paint, and I found that sometimes it could suck some of the moisture out, so the inks actually work better on wings. Just gotta figure out what colors. It's Christmas. Let's do red and green. Why not? Now these are extremely, extremely delicate. So even with an ink, you need to find a nice, good pen that you don't have to put pressure down, because these guys will not take pressure. They will get holes, they will rip. I mean, it's even hard to usually find these guys even not ripped in nature. I usually get the wings from like randomly finding like a cicada body. Or a friend of mine has a bird feeder. So if she finds them, she'll give them to me because birds don't eat the wing part. So the cicada wings are actually a bit harder to come by, and they're really hard to come by in like whole pieces. But I find painting them like this, it just reminds me of stained glass, and I just find it very pretty and just really kind of soothing and relaxing. But yeah, you have to have a very, very delicate hand when dealing with these wings. And it can take a while depending on how much detail is on each of these. And I can't find my black pen. Hope everybody's holiday is going well. So far, so good. For me, lots of stuff going on. Trying to book as many shows as humanly possible. Still working on getting out from underneath the fertility crap. For those who have been tuned into what's been going on in my life. My anxiety has started to get back under control a little bit, which is nice. Started seeing a therapist that specialized in anxiety. I don't know. I stopped going. I wasn't real. Me and her just, I don't know if we clicked. I don't think it's anything wrong or anything she did wrong. It's just, you know, you gotta have that, that feeling of a, you know, I feel like you can help me kind of thing. And I just didn't get that with her. So, I'll be shopping. So anybody knows, good anxiety specialist, comment below. Alright, let's begin the resin, shall we? I think so this is an equal pour 2-part epoxy. And it's cheaper to buy it in industrial size, so I have ginormous jugs. Now, there's 2 ways you can pour epoxy, because you got to be really, really accurate with it, because if you get the mixing wrong on it, it's 2 things. One of 2 things can happen. Either your resin will be gummy and never dry, or it can get brittle and break. So you got to get your right on. So you need a flat, level surface. And me personally, I just have a 2-ounce marked cup that I'm using, or I also have these bigger ones that I can do up to 8 ounce. So then I just balance it out, like, you know, 4 and 4, or for the 2 ounce, 1 ounce, 1 ounce. But you got to make sure you're like right on the line and get it exact. Otherwise, again, you're either gonna wind up with gummy or brittle resin, which nobody wants that. The other way you can do it is you can get a postal scale. They're not too expensive. Figure out how much the cup weighs, subtract that, and then do. And remember, it'll settle, so let it settle for a few minutes before continuing pouring. Do a measurement scale as far as liquid weight. That's another really good way to get a spot on accurate pour. Alright, once the resin is poured, then you very gently, because The more you crazy stir, the more bubbles are going to wind up in it. So you want to very gently stick this down in here and then very, very evenly stir your resin until it's completely mixed, which means there's no syrupy looking stripes in it. Because also, if you don't mix it right, the two scenarios that I mentioned are going to happen. So yeah, you got to make sure it's mixed correctly. Also, some people use a vacuum. If you do a vacuum, then you can like vacuum out the bubbles. Basically, it takes all the air out. Those are nice. But also with that, you need to make sure if you are doing a vacuum that if you're doing a mold, that it is a vacuum approved mold, because otherwise it will warp whatever it is that you're doing. But I do not have a vacuum system. They're not super expensive, so eventually I may invest in getting one. And then just vacuum after mixing it, just vacuum it like and get a vacuum approved vessel to mix in and put it in there and suck out the bubbles and then do it that way. This is going to be a super long video. Resin takes forever. Because you have to be so delicate when mixing, because again, the more you pull it up and down and rapidly mix, the more bubbles are going to wind up in it. And so you just got to be very delicate when you're stirring. And you'll see I'm scraping the bottom and I'm scraping the sides as I go, because you don't, again, you want to make sure that your mixture is completely correctly mixed. Basically, it'll start out looking kind of cloudy, and then as it goes, it'll clear. And then once you get to a really good spot, it'll be completely clear. But you also want to make, when it starts getting clear, instead of it looking cloudy, you'll see like almost like syrupy looking lines in it. I guess that's the best way to describe it. Hopefully this is fitting and people have stayed this long. If not, I totally understand. Just again, trying to give a little peek into what it takes to do some of the stuff that I do. Oftentimes people are wondering, you know, about prices and how we come up with them as vendors, and if we're just trying to be shisty and like make a whole lot of money off of like stuff that's super cheap. And that is not what I'm about at all. In fact, I put maximum effort in, and usually at best I usually make about $5 off of it. I haven't gotten to the point where I feel like, if I feel comfortable selling it for that price, I feel like you've gotten a good deal. And I haven't completely, well, I haven't gotten to the point where I haven't completely just basically robbed myself. Because if you really think about it, as many hours as I spend on these things, if I were to make minimum wage, just $8 an hour, making this stuff would be crazy expensive. Because like I said, I spend a couple hours, it took 20 minutes to detail paint that, so there's 20 minutes there. And then as you can see, it takes a couple hours to get the resin going and to add the powders and to get the bubbles out and stuff like that. So like, let's say it only took me 2 hours to make something, which is very rare. That's $16 right there, just starting pay. And that doesn't count supplies and stuff like that. So Really, to tell you honest truth, when you're buying something, especially for me or somebody else who does this kind of thing, and anything is um, below like 2 hours pay, then you are getting basically free labor on what you have just purchased. So I find it fascinating. I never thought about it like that before, you know. I always looked at the price and was like, dang, why is that so expensive? Well, hun, they've probably spent, if it's a handmade, a good couple hours making that, man. So, something to think about. We don't get paid like regular paychecks. We don't have health insurance. We are making this art and trying to make, you know, something beautiful brought into this world. And I know personally, there's nothing more amazing than like seeing somebody smile or like, adding enrichment to their life in some way. And in this particular way, I know some days if I'm having a really bad day, the right accessory can make me feel a little bit better. I know that maybe, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm rambling. Okay, at any rate, so after she's mixed, basically there's going to be some bubbles on the top. Fire is a good way to get bubbles out. Surface bubbles. Give it a little tap, tap, tap. Help some of the bubbles rise. Tap, tap, tap. And then usually it's a good idea to let it set for 5-10 minutes. Let the bubbles surface and then take the heat to it and pop as many bubbles as possible. Since I also use this as a fixative to fix my items together because I do not trust glue. I have had way too many things break on me. I can use it before all the bubbles are popped. I just want to make sure the bubbles are popped before I go sticking it in the molds, basically. So for this cameo, basically what I'm going to do is I will take this paintbrush and I will dab on the corners to give it a nice secure hold. And also another thing I do with a lot of my jewelry is I will coat the back. I will put a nice thin coat on the back or like a raised spot. It's not the most attractive of things. I'm not even gonna lie, but people don't usually see the back of your jewelry. But the reason I do that is because I personally am a very, very allergic to metal. And some of these metals, when you get them, I mean, some of them say that they don't have the X amount of this or that. You never know, really, sometimes when you're getting online exactly what you're going to be getting. So, just to make sure that people can wear my stuff, I usually put a nice thin coat of resin on the back of it, and I try to wash the stuff that I get in just in case, you know, something in transport or like dust from the factory or whatnot. However, I do suggest everybody wash their pieces when they first get them or wipe them down with alcohol on the back because I personally do travel. And when you're traveling, dust and dirt can get in things. So it's always a good idea to wash jewelry that you've bought before wearing. Otherwise, you could potentially get a rash from something that might not normally give you a rash. So, just a little tip. And after I feel like I got a nice good coat to connect, then I will be letting that set. Okay, and she just needs to sit. She'll be sitting there for 24 hours at least. You can usually pop them before the 24-hour mark. Basically the gist of it is it's going to be a little bit gummy when you pop them early, and sometimes I do pop them early because I need to put a screw in the top of it, and it's easier to put a screw in the top of it if they're gummy instead of completely hard. Also, but if they are completely hard, then you can always just use a drill, put a drill in there, and then I use some epoxy to make sure that it's gonna stay. I'm very worried about my jewelry falling apart. If it's gonna fall apart, I would much prefer it fall apart on me than fall apart on somebody else. Now, granted, it is jewelry, and with wear and tear, the natural lifespan will happen, and eventually, it will no longer be together. But I'd like to prolong the life of the jewelry as much as humanly possible. So that's how I connect the back to that. And then I had a hole I need to fill over here. So basically what happens when these sit, you can sit, I usually sit here for quite a while and pop as many bubbles as humanly possible. But as it's sitting, especially with organic sometimes, because I use peroxide and stuff to clean my bones, sometimes it will have a little bit of reaction. Oh, we got cut off. I could sit here all night and like pop bubbles, but I mean, it's blurry. I'm sorry. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm gonna get every single bubble every single time. So yeah. Bubbles happen unless you do have a vacuum seal, and then I'm sure you don't have to worry quite as much about it. But I will literally sit in here and fiddle with it for a couple hours trying to make sure I get all the bubbles out. As many as possible because bubbles do bother me. And you can get different kinds of resin. I prefer the gloss, but you can get non-gloss. Gloss isn't your thing. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah. Oh yeah. Also, you wear gloves when working with resin. It says so on the bottles. Me personally, I'm just that person who always forgets to put gloves on. Your hands will get sticky if you get your fingers into this stuff. So, be forewarned. I'm setting a bad example. I'm very sorry. Okay, so there's also two ways that I do the real roses. One is you saw what I did with the dragonfly. Sometimes I'll just paint each individual petal. But this one in particular is going to be stuck onto a necklace. So I actually want a drip spot because that will give a good hold when I go to put it on the necklace. So this guy is just going to get dipped and dripped. And then set on there. And that will give a nice flat little surface for me to connect to later. And I got some. All right. thought I had one set out for this guy. Maybe I didn't. Oh, of course, all the way back here. No. Come on. Why do I never remember to do things? Alright. I was gonna say, no, am I out? No, I'm not out. Thank goodness. Oops. Alright. I don't know if you can even see what I'm doing. Sorry. Two robots gone. Gold robots, gold robots. Dun 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 dun. Dun dun dun. Alright, I think that's all the clear stuff with these. So, now that I've done the stick together portion. Oh, wait, I was going to do that. Dang it. Dang it. I always forget stuff. So, I also make my rings by using resin instead of, again, glue, because, again, I have an extreme issue with glue. And sometimes I use like a popcorn filled container like this to hold the rings up while they're drying. This particular ring is just going to go over the rim, because this particular style, the extra support. So, good news. All right, back to what I was doing. All right, I think that's all the clear gluey together pieces. So now you can see that most of the bubbles have dissipated, and it's a nice, good, clean, clear resin. So once you get to that part, then these are the clear resin pieces that I'm going to be doing. Sometimes I will add a little bit of a glow powder to my bone jewelry that I do in the squares, which is super fun, and I can get one down and show you. No, I'm getting drippies. This does not always pour the best. Oh, and I have ruined more than one dress sitting in here doing this. Ah, crap. No! It's invading my other projects. And this is a really good reason why it's a good idea to put down the wax paper. There we go. Okay. All right. I think that's all the clear. Okay, so after I get the clear ones poured, inevitably bubbles do in fact get in here. And so this is what I'm talking about fussing with it. So the bubbles, for the most part, will somewhat naturally rise, but for the ones that don't, and sometimes bubbles can get trapped behind the object that's in there, I gotta pull the bubbles to the surface because you cannot pop the bubbles unless they are on the surface. And then I will take the torch and pop them once I pull them to the surface. And more bubbles sometimes arise, again, after it sits for a while, depending on what kind of a reaction it's having. If it sits for too long, then the bubble is just going to be in there and you just gotta live with it. So I try to fuss with it and push it around and get all the bubbles out I can humanly possible get out. Again, people who have vacuum seals don't have this issue. That's why you'll see some of the commercial stuff less bubbly than like um again, like something I make, who I make these at home. Um, again, I do fairly decent at these. I sell fairly well, but then, I mean, I don't make a ton of money off each of these. Of course, I try to, make as much as I can, but again, I don't want to gouge anybody. I don't want anybody to feel like they didn't get a good deal. And I really just started doing this because I wanted to make people happy. And again, I was actually originally doing this just for my friends and my airship, making jewelry and costumes and things. And then when we had the issue with doing the fertility, everybody was like, hey, you can't work a regular job because I actually have like endometriosis, osteoplastocytosis, or whatever. I don't know what it's called. It's basically like a severe form of endometriosis. Instead of it being the endometriosal tissue, it's tubal tissue that spreads everywhere that it's not supposed to be. So it's seriously crazy painful, and there's only like a small percentage of people who've had it. As a matter of fact, the person that we went to, the specialist, has only ever had like one other case. So, but it causes like a gritty, sandy material to build up, and just basically all this fun stuff. Too much information kind of a situation. Um, but yeah, so that's how Mirabelle's Menagerie actually began. Was I just really, we need to make ends meet. The fertility clinic that we worked with, the gist of it was they told us it was going to be a certain amount of money. They gave us a piece of paper, said this is the rough estimate. So we did about $2,000. We saved about 2,000, and we've been saving for this for a while because we thought, this might come to it because of my condition. And we finally saved up enough to go ahead and pull the trigger, and they started changing prices. They put in orders to for medication without consulting us. It added like not just small amounts, not like, oh, this is an extra $20, like more like it's an extra $900. They started having to do tests that they didn't tell us about. They assured us this is really expensive procedure that we had to do wasn't going to happen, and then it did, and they didn't say anything. Basically, the whole thing was just absolutely a horrendous and awful experience, and it got us. It's not like you can just be like, oh well, this isn't working out, so let's just stop. It was like we had already matched. I already started the hormones. The money had already started being charged. Like there was no stopping. We were to the point where we just had to like figure it out. Which just put us in a really bad position, and we're still trying to dig out of it. And unfortunately, with them doing that to us, it not only hurt us to the point where we have been struggling, it also hurt us to the point where even if we did want to adopt at this point, we wouldn't have the extra money to do it because adoption also costs money, and it was really bad. But at any rate, I'm rambling. And anyway, that's how Mirabelle's Menagerie came to be. Was encouragement and love and support of my Airship Ashanti. Go check them out on Facebook. We do some awesome stuff, philanthropy around Cincinnati area. Oh yeah, also that was lip powder. This is some amazing, amazing, amazing glow in the dark powder that actually works. It's not just like, oh, this might glow one day for 10 seconds. This stuff is actually powerful. So I just put the lip powder in, and I'm going to, once you stir it, of course, you're going to get bubbles. So I'm going to go ahead and debubble, and then I'm going to pour. So I'm going to do a glow in the dark heart, and a glow in the dark Mickey, and a glow in the dark heart, another glow in the dark heart. One was a heartless symbol, and glow in the dark crown, a glow in the dark robot, and a couple, well, maybe just one, it looks like, glow in the dark Jason. Alright, pop the bubbles, a little bit of heat, and yeah. So basically from here, I'm going to sit here and continue detail painting some stuff I got to detail paint. I'm going to start chaining the stuff I got to chain, and maybe I'll do a chain video next time. And I'm going to be basically taking this and pulling bubbles out for about 30 minutes or so, and popping bubbles. So that's going to be the rest of my night. Hopefully somebody watches this and enjoys it. Learn something from it. Hopefully it'll be helpful in some way, shape, or form to somebody. But yeah, no. Happy cosplay, happy life, and everybody, I hope, has a good evening. Good night. Maybe stop the video. Ah, there we go.